Hello, my friends. Welcome back. I am your local art witch, and today we are getting into the court cards. For the last several weeks, we've been discussing the Minor Arcana. The Minor Arcana has 56 cards separated into 4 separate suits: air, water, earth, and fire. They start with the ace and go all the way up to 10. So the promise of something beginning with the ace all the way to the culmination of the element, the theme, at 10. Following them, we have the court cards. I said last week that I originally wanted to do these separately because this is kind of a large task, but where they are sort of as a family, I wasn't sure if that would work, so we are going to do them together. So get yourself some water, a snack. We're going to be here for a minute. We're going to start from lesser to the greater. So where we ended with 10, we will start with the page, then the knight, then the queen, and then the king. So the court cards in general represent people in our lives. I don't hold to any concrete rules when it comes to these people, and I'll discuss why here in a moment. I find it actually helpful to think of it in a more loose way, and I tend to get better reads. So starting with the pages, these signify a young energy. They tend to be either children, 18 and younger, a youthful outlook. If they are not literal children, then they tend to be people with a youthful outlook on specific things. Our elements here can signify to us where this youthful energy is coming from. A page of cups, for example, we're thinking of a young person, either literally young or young at heart, that is just beginning to learn how to grapple to manage their emotions. Maybe the beginning of something new, maybe a brand new relationship that they've just entered, and they're approaching it like, say, a teenager would, their first boyfriend or girlfriend. And that's not necessarily negative, particularly for people who are older. I find that when people who have been hurt a lot go to enter a new relationship, they feel like they have to really keep things close to the chest. Sometimes approaching it with the vulnerability of a person who has not been harmed in that way can really help the relationship. So the Page of Cups is immature in some way with emotion, with family matters. The Page of Swords is immature in their words, their thoughts, their truth. The Page of Pentacles is just beginning to learn how to take responsibility, starting a new job, learning how to manage money and their assets for the first time. And the Page of Wands is just beginning to learn how to assert themselves in the world. With the pages and the knights in particular, I tend to ignore the gender representation on the card completely. I take it as more a general mindset of a person in a particular situation. And it can depend on the age of the person that you think the card is telling you about. Like if you're thinking, this one in particular is a really good and easy example. For a child who, I don't know, they're 14, they just got their first job. This is great. This is a very positive, promising card. They're just starting to step out into the world and figure out who they are. If I was getting this and I was reading for somebody and they're more like 50 and they're just learning how to manage their money, maybe they've never had to worry about it before. I don't mean this in a judgmental way, but this can be, if this was them just beginning to learn how to manage their money, it's more concerning. But generally, it could even just be a new career in general that they're just learning. The Knights are more mature. I see them generally as just breaking into adulthood, so between when a child would be graduating until they're, say, well, nowadays I guess it would be about 30, they're figuring out who they are, where they stand in the world, and what they can offer it. They are just beginning to enter their prime. They are learning how to be confident. The Knights are fast energy, that youthful energy. They're beginning their lives. They're setting up what it is that they want. They're starting their families. They're slowly gaining a mastery over a particular situation or job or relationship of some kind. The Queens and Kings are interesting because these two do hint more at expected gender situations that we have in Western culture. And this is in general how I read them. One of the many, many reasons I enjoy the Modern Witch Tarot is gender is quite a bit more fluid in this deck, and I feel like that's more fair. And when you're reading for people, it can actually be helpful to get out of your brain about strict binary rules. The Kings and Queens are the most mature cards of the court. They have figured it out. They are confident. They've mastered it. So where we were just learning with the pages, we were gaining mastery, learning, moving fast with the Knights. We have mastered a particular thing. This one is with emotions and family and foundational type of stuff, and this one would be more monetary, career, asset situations. The difference in Kings and Queens is more how that mastery is expressed. With the so-called females, the feminine energy here, I tend to find more gentle. So if we were reading and I got a Queen of Swords and I told a person, this doesn't necessarily represent a woman in your life. This is a person who has a more subtle, not feminine energy, because that's seen sort of negative if we're thinking of a man in this situation, but they're careful with their words. They're mindful of these things, and that can help us with figuring out who in this reading these cards are trying to tell us or warn us about. So in my personal experience, the Queens represent a more subtle, gentle way of approaching a situation, a conversation, a relationship. Male energy, on the other hand, in my personal experience, indicates a more direct energy, a more, how do I put it? I'm not saying that women are inherently more sneaky. It's more that women in my culture, we're all raised to be thoughtful at all times of the feelings of those around us. And because of this, there's this carefulness in approaching another person or situation that I don't see in men. Men don't tend to mince their words. You're going to know how and what they're feeling about a thing, even if they don't say anything, because they haven't been raised in such a way that they feel like they're inconveniencing others or hurting others by existing. And I can't say that that's true of all cultures. It's just the way that I was raised. There's going to be a little bit of flavor if you're reading for a person and you didn't have these lessons imparted on you. You are going to have different feelings when you see these energies. There's going to be interpretations you come to based on your own lived experience. Once you know the basic associations of each card, you may find in your own practice that it is helpful to see it as a strict binary. It's actually part of the reason why I really, really love tarot. I tend to think of it as spicy psychology. We lay out a hand and it opens my subconscious to things I can't normally access. We can get mired down with our burdens. We can't see our situation like an outsider, and sometimes that's really helpful. For reversals in these cards, as usual, or at least in my practice, the way I do it, I see it as an inverse, topsy-turvy kind of way, as opposed to their upright form. So the Queen of Swords, for example, she is confident, she is assured, she speaks in truth. Upside down, this character is much more likely to talk out of both sides of her mouth. She can be sneaky. It's not she, but this person tends to be really tricky with their words, backhanded compliments. It is a more... Every coin has two sides, and this is the more tail side of this card. I wanted to show you an example of a read I did recently where it was actually a lot of court cards. I was practicing for some people, doing reads for people I didn't really know for the first time. And the way I start my reads is I ask, okay, before you shuffle, this is how I do it at least, I want you to think of a question. What is it that you are coming to me with? Let's shuffle. And let's say I'm thinking about how my relationship is going to be. That tends to be a common one. So I will shuffle, and then I hand my client, my friend, whoever it is I'm reading for, my deck. And I ask them, I say, think about your situation, what it is that you would like advice about, and shuffle. And I tell them shuffle until it feels about right. And then they pass the deck back to me. I do a spread like so. And I get them to feel out the energy, and they'll pick random cards. For this particular person, I originally, because she was very dicey about her situation. I had no idea what was happening. And so I said, why don't you pull 5 cards and we'll see what I get. I did take pictures, so here's the read here. So these are the cards, and I knew nothing about this situation, and I was like, isn't this interesting? I haven't seen this many people show up in a spread. This looks busy. This looks overwhelming. I get the feeling like there's a lot of voices happening here. And I described to her what each of these cards meant, what they were doing. And I described, the general traits of the courts that I was seeing. No card on its own, there we go, good example, can describe a human in all of our complexity. We get certain keywords in certain setups that help give us cues as to who it might be speaking of. And even if it's only nudging your subconscious, it's still giving you the tools to help think about your situation in a different way. So I described the people, and with enough info, associations between the elements, the age and energy of each card. Who does this sound like to you? Does this represent anybody? Follow your intuition, keep that person in mind. And then I did another spread for her because this first spread described to me what the situation was, because I had no idea. I said, I'm going to do another read. I did a Celtic cross right here. And I want you to take particular attention to some of these specific cards here. You'll notice that this King of Cups appeared again. And so he was really interesting to me, particularly where he showed up. In this particular spread, we have the goal here, and then this king is the obstacle. So I described the king again. I said, I'm seeing all these wonderful things falling into place all over here. But this is whoever this is, whoever's being represented here, this is your first person that you need to speak with, to touch base with. And I really see that the rest of it is going to fall into place. We need to minimize these voices, these people's opinions, in order to get your mind clear enough that you can see your way out. She did recently-ish contact me. She let me know we had our reading, and she had let me know at the end of our reading that she had an opportunity to speak with whoever this King of Cups was for her on Wednesday. So it would be 3 days in the future. And so I waited and waited. And about a week later, I found out that she did in fact have the conversation on Wednesday. And by Sunday, the majority of the situation was resolved by talking with this King of Cups. And it's not surprising. The King of Cups is about family, emotion, the maturity in those areas. So if he was the major block, it seems to me, it makes sense to me that by talking to him first, he was able to help her correct this situation once he understood everything that was going on. So that's just something really, really neat about tarot that I just really love. And I love that it can be different for every single person. That's part of the reason why it would be so difficult to validate tarot in a scientific study, is every reader would bring their own history, their own interpretations and feelings onto each card. Particularly in my example of how I see the female and male energies playing out, there must be cultures where they would see the female cards as more abrupt, not in your face, that's not the right word, but there must be cultures in which it's more of a matriarchy. Women control the government and culture, perhaps, in such a way that they don't feel like they need to be small and super quiet all the time in order to make the people around them feel okay. So maybe they would be surprised at my interpretation of female and male energy, for example. Hopefully that was clear. Next time, I want to start going into the Major Arcana, the deck overall, the history, just a little bit, because knowing where these people came from when the decks were first really solidified can give us a lot of insight onto how to associate some of these cards, particularly those of us here in North America, at least. It tends to be a fairly Christian culture. And with the Rider-Waite Tarot, you're going to see a lot of Christian imagery on it. So that's pretty interesting. I do have a couple videos in the works, a new Book of Shadows and a Poppet video that's going to take a while to finish. And I hope you all will stick around for that. If you are interested in videos like that, give me a subscribe. I would love if you stuck around, like the video, send me some comments. How do you interpret your male and female energies, for example? I would love to know. The more associations we have, the better our reads can be for others. Let me know. I've been your local art witch. I hope to see you again soon. Take care. Much love. Bye-bye for now.